There we go. Okay, awesome. So everyone can see the screen, I take it. And what I'm gonna do is I opened up all these like tabs and we don't really need all of them. Because I'll get lost otherwise, and we'll start here. And this is kind of the one that we want. That we get rid of. Okay, so let's just talk through this. Awesome. Hey, Zach, just because I know that you've used FigJam, would you volunteer actually to be the sort of driver and recorder of things in FigJam as we talk through the application?
Sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, would you be willing, like, we're going to talk through the program and kind of plan out our models a bit. And as we do that, will you just kind of add, you know, like rectangles to represent different fields and draw arrows between them and such, or different models rather, to build like a very simple sort of like model diagram? Or I can do that, but this is amazing to see. Cool. And we've got a snail. If only we could like turn the snail into code one day with machine learning. We should have done this. If we had done this from day one, we never would have gotten any work. I'm just going to kind of enjoy everything that's happening for a moment, and then we'll dive in. I'm going to take a screenshot.
So do we need to make an account to edit stuff?
Great question. Does anybody know? I just logged in with my Code Platoon Google account. And I hear in the classroom that the answer is yes. And don't stress too much. Like myself or one other person will be doing most of the driving in FigJam. Mainly, I want to make sure that we can all see it easily. Feel free to enjoy FigJam. I'm going to jump over and start kind of talking through this feature that we're going to build. And I just need one moment to pull up a document that I need to reference on my other screen. So give me a sec. Beautiful. Okay, so we're building a library. What I've done that is a little different than what we've seen is I've written out like a series of very high level features. And I'm just going to kind of walk us through it. As I do, if you have questions, feel free to mention them and we can talk about it. And we'll capture that in a doc too. And this one, it will just be a Google Doc and I'll share it and everyone can edit it. And feel free. So with this Google Doc, it's in the Zoom chat. Feel free to edit it, but please like add notes or questions, but don't play with it like the FigJam. Let's keep that one a little more organized. So we're going to build a library program. As we've seen, it's got a lot of similar functionality. People are going to check out books. Librarians are going to add books. We're not going to worry about authentication. That's not critical for review today. It's not on the assessment. It's going to be a very liberal library where patrons can also be librarians and add new books to the system. We're not going to worry about the prettiness of the user interface. As much as possible, we're going to use Django and HTML forms. If we need to do a little Axios, we will. Features. I think you folks are familiar with a lot of this. View a list of books. View all books that an author wrote. And view all books returning to a genre. And here, let's start digging in a bit and let me start asking people questions just off of these first 3 points. And going down this list in alphabetical order, Alicia, you're first according to the Google Sheet. So let's talk a little bit about our data models. Just from this first feature of viewing books and viewing books written by an author and books belonging to a genre, what are your thoughts about what data models we might need or what questions you have around that?
Okay, so I'm thinking that we would need a book
Yep.
class model, what font model, I guess. I guess you could say either, right?
Yeah.
And an author one. And let's see, an author can write many books. A book usually only has one author, but sometimes can have two. But
That's an excellent point.
we could probably just do a one-to-many for this purpose, but it does sometimes have additional. So you can do whatever relationship you want there with that, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we'll need a genre class. And same kind of thing, as a genre could belong to many books, and technically a book can have multiple genres, although you could also say just one. So same thing, however you want to do that. And then I probably wouldn't tie author to genre. We'll allow them some free creativity to write whatever they want.
I concur. I don't think, at least in what we've looked at before, I don't think there's a necessary relationship between author and genre. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm gonna
Yeah,
move.
so as far as like one-to-one or many-to-many, I'll kind of leave that in your hand because it could technically, or one-to-many versus many-to-many, you could make arguments for both here. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about that for a sec. Which one is simpler to implement, do you think?
for me, one-to-many.
One-to-many? Yeah, yeah, it is, because it's a foreign key. So
We could
Yeah.
do one of each, I guess.
what do you mean by one
We
of
could-
each?
Like the book to genre could be one-to-many, one genre.
Mhm.
Or one book has one genre, but a genre could belong to many books. And then for book to author, we could do many-to-many if you wanted to do practice of both.
Many-to-many, where a book, because a book can have multiple authors.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think, so here's a question that does come to mind. If a book has multiple authors, and then we want to view all books belonging to a particular author, oh, that's fine. The book would just show up in the lists of both the authors. Okay, so we're good. Yeah, I like that because I've definitely read some books that have more than one author. So let's do many-to-many. Oh, awesome. Whoever's adding that, beautiful. And then whoever's doing that, oh, Zach, yeah, beautiful. Please go ahead, and we want a book can only belong to one genre. Is that what you're thinking? Is that correct, Alicia?
yeah, so we could do
Yeah.
one-to-many here.
Yeah, so that's going to be a one-to-many relationship, with the genre being, a book can only have one genre, but a genre can have multiple books. So Zach, you may need to change the arrow or do whatever you need to do to make sure that we indicate that in the model. Cool. And okay, Alicia, that's awesome. Thank you.
And then I didn't know, are you
yeah.
doing one for a library as well, or just these here?
Say that again.
Are you doing one for a library as well, or just these?
Oh, you mean like for everything belonging to a library?
Yeah,
Got it. No, that's a good question. We're going to assume that our entire database represents one library.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And realistically, that's probably how you do it, especially since a database engine can hold multiple databases. Okay, but this is an awesome start, and I'm just gonna roll on to the next person on the list. Angel, I could use a little help, like what are like what's the minimum information that we probably want to have in each of these models with book, author, and genre? And if you can't do audio, maybe throw your thoughts in the Zoom chat or just let us know in Zoom chat. Or I'm going to jump on to the next person, who is Benjamin. Can you hear me, Benjamin? Okay, let's do a quick gut check. Are these people here, or am I just calling out people that are not here?
I think Ben is on the road. He's driving cross country right now.
Got it. Thank you. And good to see you, Craig. Craig, okay. I hate to pile on the person who volunteered the helpful information, but I know you're here. So like, yeah, let's talk about what's the minimum amount of information we want maybe in each of our models about a book, an author, and a genre, Craig. Like let's start with book. What is some of the basic information that we have to have about a book?
Obviously title.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to add that. Title. Yeah, what else?
Jeez. The only two other things I can think of are author and genre.
Yeah.
Maybe like what's it called? The ISBN number?
Yeah.
Or is that too nerdy?
You know, in a real world situation, it would be essential. For our purposes, we don't need it. We're going to use the primary key of the book model to be the equivalent of the ISBN. Yeah, and I love John. It's a great comment. No such thing as nerdy. And Craig, what about author and genre? What's the minimum information we need for these fields?
Just the author's name, first name, last name.
Yep. And I think I'm going to make it even easier. I'm just going to do name. Again, yeah. Again, simply for learning purposes for what we want to do today. It makes life a little easier. And then genre?
Oh, geez, what would you call it? I guess you can't have the table called genre and actually the key called genre.
Yeah, I'll just say name, genre name.
Okay.
Yeah, with genre, we might have to come back and add a description, but we might not, because I remember that I think that might have come up because genre name. Well, actually, this raises a good question. Let's talk about these fields. Yeah, Craig, do we need any like restrictions on these fields about what they can or cannot be?
Well, so far they should all be alphabetical. Well, that's not true. I guess the title could have a number in it and characters.
Yeah, alphanumeric, alphanumeric. Can we have two books with the same title?
I guess technically if they were from different authors.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the right answer.
No, yeah, I think we're figuring out. Does that feel good with that to everyone?
Oh, okay. Apparently a restriction is that it can only have one book with the same title.
Oh, who's?
Maybe not. That's a comment in the.
Yeah, we can do that too. It might, in some ways, it might like make life a little simpler. And in that same vein, I'm just going to go ahead and we probably need an author to have a unique name for our purposes. And then genre also.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thinking here is if we have two genres named Western, it would get tricky and confusing, especially if we use the genre name in the URL.
Mhm.
With an author, you know, to be honest, we could have authors not be unique and titles not be unique. I think again, just simply for learning purposes and simplicity, it helps avoid confusing situations.
It definitely will for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, and let's see. Craig, do you want to maybe actually pass the question stick, so to speak, to another person? Maybe
Sure.
we'll deviate from the list.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, who should we bring up on
Oh, I
deck?
have to pick someone.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see how that goes. And I tried going down the list and I hit 2 blanks, so I'm gonna mix it up.
Wow. Okay, Michael's gonna do it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, and we can go back to alphabetical order if that works better for people. So I feel like we're in a good spot now. Like, we've talked through our data model. We're talking through the features, and we're getting close to implementing. I feel like that, you know, at this point we can make a choice as if we want to build the models first or maybe break it down. But since this is a review, Michael, before we even do anything, maybe you can just kind of like talk us through like what's going to happen when we build these models. Like, what are we going to have to do in Django? Is there anything we're going to have to do in Create that's not captured here? Can you maybe just kind of walk through that process a little bit?
So are you talking about like the models.py process?
Yeah, like we've got these 3 models that we know we're going to want to create, and we've got these relationships between them. What tools does Django ORM give us to put this all into code?
Well, so first we have to connect our database to Django, and we have to make sure we have a database actually
Yeah.
created for the library.
Yeah,
And then assuming we have all that and we've written our models, with the Python manage.py, you can do like the make migrations. And then what it does is it takes the Django Python ORM code and it like translates it into like a SQL type code that when you run Python manage.py migrate, will send it to the database, and then the database does its thing with the data sent from
Yep.
Django ORM.
yep. And when I create, let's say we go ahead and we create our book model. What are we going to use in Django ORM to connect it to the genre model?
So it would be, so you would put like genre ID or something for the name, and then you'd do like models.foreign key, and
Yeah,
then you would put genre, and then like you can put on delete, cascade, or protect, or whichever one you feel is suitable for the database.
yeah, totally. And I really should have, that was a great walkthrough, and I should have, I wish I had had the code up and the project ready, because then we could have just gone ahead and done that. So I apologize. I'm going to go and get my code ready. But while I'm doing that, I am going to jump back to the list for a moment and kind of keep moving down it. Chris, are you there? And thank you, Michael. That was a great description.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, how are you doing?
Good, man. Thank you. Can you walk us through, like, we've created a book model. We've created an author model. What do we have to do in Django ORM to construct this many-to-many relationship between them?
We have to start going into our models file and create classes.
Yes, and then when we, sorry, folks, I'm just moving some tabs to a different screen. When we create those classes, what are we going to do with either the book class or the author class of those models to to make that many-to-many relationship happen.
We're gonna use a foreign key.
Yes, and well, does a foreign key work for a many-to-many relationship?
Not sure.
I am struggling a bit off the top of my head either as well.
Foreign keys for one to many.
Yeah, and well, Chris, do you want to take a crack at looking at the docs and kind of digging into it, or do you want to maybe phone a friend? Either or.
I think if anybody wants to volunteer,
You got to pick someone. That is the rule. You got to pick
Justin.
someone who's got a phone.
I picked Justin.
Well, shit,
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the question again? I wasn't listening.
Chris, can you walk me through it?
Actually, Dan wants to take it. I'll just pass it to Dan.
Sweet.
So we need to set one of the fields as many to many. So, or we need to give either book or author a field that ties it back to the other with a models.many to many field.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Nice. Jacob, yes, sir. So you have a question.
I'm not sure if we want to add it right now, but I was just looking at the assignment like README, and it says a book can be a paperback, a hardcover, an ebook, an audiobook. So I don't know if we want to like add that into the book class.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We're gonna have to do something with that. And let's actually talk about that next. So
For sure.
I'll put you on deck, Jacob. And there's just one more question I wanted to ask Dan.
Definitely, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a really good question and good eye noticing that. The last thing I wanted to ask Dan, and I think we have a hot mic in the on-person room. I'm getting a little echo. Thank you. I know it's a little frustrating. I appreciate it. Dan, you were spot on describing kind of how we build this many-to-many relationship. You might have mentioned it. I'm not sure. There's one other thing that happens when we construct a many-to-many relationship in Django ORM.
Alicia mentioned it in the comments. I definitely omitted it, but we need a join table.
Yeah, exactly. And what is a join table? Here, I'm gonna sort of. Go ahead. Yeah.
I got nothing.
All
Anyone
good?
else who has something?
Yeah.
It's a table of indexes and it has 2 columns for foreign keys for the 2 tables you're joining.
Cool. Yeah, so the only thing I do want to, I appreciate it, Justin. Just so we can manage the class, there should only be kind of one person doing the talking, but then you can ask for help. Otherwise, it just gets a little. Actually, we're doing really well. As long as we're good with this, then and it's working, then I retract all of that. And I will lessen my desire for control. Though I would like folks to give the person who's kind of talking space to like phone a friend if they want to, because that's part of the process too, right? Is kind of deciding, all right, I want to check in with a buddy. But yeah, Justin, can you say that one more time? And I'm gonna kind of type that up as you describe it.
Yeah, it's an extra table, so book author, so it'll just have a foreign keys to book an author.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
essentially something like that. Is that
Correct.
look about right?
Yes.
Awesome. And I'm gonna leave that there. I'll just make a note. And when someone gets the chance, they can clean it up in the Fig Jam. But yeah, that was awesome. And Dan, you did a great job walking through it. And Alicia, thank you for mentioning that one other thing. The join table, that's a key part. Does this make sense to folks diagram wise, kind of? Here,
Could
I'll
you
see.
talk about it a little bit more? I see it like book and author are both classes, but what is book underscore author like actually doing? Is that a class?
Yeah, so, when we create, well, actually, does someone want to take a jump at kind of describing what the join table is and how it works in Django ORM?
I can.
Go for it, Alicia.
So the join table is what's going to kind of handle that many-to-many relationship so that you can put, you're gonna have so in there, you're gonna have like book ID and author ID, and then it's gonna be a foreign key to the book and then a foreign key to the author. So that kind of links the two together, so that, and then in probably, let's see, does a book belong to an author? Yeah, probably that way. So then also under like the author class, we're gonna have to have a book ID, which is the many-to-many field, and then that connects them all together. I don't know if that really gave you much more information though.
What does it look like in like the code though? Is this something that goes, is book underscore author something that goes in models.py?
So
So
book underscore author is a table. Actually, I might need to refresh myself. I don't think we have to declare this in models.py, but I believe Django ORM manages for you automatically.
So I actually just read that, and it did say that it would create it automatically for you, but that you could make your own and specify like, I want it to go through this, like if you wanted to add additional functionality or whatnot.
Yeah, that sounds right. Like if you just want a basic join table that just joins two other tables, Django can manage that for you automatically. But like we've seen some examples where you might want more information than just the two foreign keys in a join table. So then you would have to set that up manually. Like when we had enrollments for our like students. So in addition to knowing which students were in which classes, we want to know like their grades in the class. So that would be an example of extra data you stick in the join table. So Django can't manage it for you automatically. I like having simpler join tables with no extra information so that the ORM can kind of manage those details for me.
So I don't think we've actually ever seen it where ORM just does it on its own. So I would be curious to know, like, would that show up in your database? Like you would just write the two models, you'd migrate them, and then would it just automatically create a new table that you could see there in your database and know that that would be your join table?
Yeah, if you use pSQL, you should be able to see that join table being created.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, now I think is a perfect time to start writing some code. And we can start putting some of that stuff together. And Jacob, file away that question about books and hardcover and audiobook, because we will circle back to it. And Raphael, I might need a little help in I feel like in the past, I may have like written a model to be the join table. So if I get stuck, I might need a little help on that front to not do it that way. Awesome. So we're about to write some code. Let me just check in with folks. I want to make sure that the review process that we're doing now is helpful. Is that the case? And do folks have any feedback, whether you want to throw it in the chat or like use some kind of emoji indicating something between like happiness or, this is okay, not great, or just checking with people, or if there's anything that you want to look at in particular.
I have a question about join tables. I thought a join table was just something that you would use to I guess, pull data. I didn't think it was something you would necessarily ever just want to look at. Is that not true?
So that's a really good question. It's gonna depend on what you're using it for. With our example here, with a book that has multiple authors, let's say we wanted to look at all the authors of a book. In that case, we have to query the join table, and we would do something like, select star from book underscore author, where book ID equals whatever my book is. And I apologize. Here, I'll type it in the Zoom chat. So this is like, the world's simplest SQL query, but that would be like, we would then get all the authors of a book from our join table in that example. Is that kind of what you were wondering about, Dalton?
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm just a little confused, but I'm sure it'll make more sense to look at it.
With like sort of like the purpose of a join table, or what it is, or how it relates to the models.
Yeah, like I guess like because I've seen that, obviously I've wrote it, but I thought like a join table was specifically like, say you were trying to do something on your front end, that's when you would, I think it's filter in RM, I'm not sure, but so I guess I just didn't really get why you would actually make it, or what purpose that would serve you if you didn't actually need any data from it at like a particular time.
Got it. Yeah, okay, that's a good question, and that's very helpful. Thank you. And so, yeah, to kind of reiterate that, you were kind of saying, all right, well, if we don't need to grab this data from this join table, why do we need it? And the essence is like, we do need a join table to represent many-to-many relationships in the database in such a way that we can query stuff. Like, this is a relatively simple query that I threw in there and a relatively simple model. But if things started to get more complicated, I'm trying to think of an example. I'm not sure if I can come up with one off the top of my head, but maybe if like a particular patron wanted to get a list of all the authors of all the books they'd ever checked out, then that query starts to get a little more complex. We'd have to look at the books that they've checked out, get all those IDs, and then use those IDs to get all the authors of those books. And if our system, our database allows for a book to have more than one author, then the best way to implement it in a database like Postgres, a relational database that lets us create these relationships between tables, is using a join table, because it gives us that flexibility. Like if we tried to like have book have, say, an authors field, and it was, I don't know, like an array of IDs or something like that, we could do that, but it makes life a lot more difficult, and we're not using the power that the relational database gives us. And it doesn't necessarily capture as much information depending on like the specifics of the data model. I hope that helps a little bit. And I think too, as we build it out, definitely like circle back to that if there are things that you're curious about and want to dig into more.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the plan is, are folks good to go maybe another 10-ish minutes before, 15 minutes before taking a break?
Yeah, we can do that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll do that. I think we're going to write out the code for what we've kind of mapped out here, and then we'll take a break. That'll be a perfect time, and then we can kind of dive in. So I'm going to get the ball rolling as the driver. And actually, I apologize. I'm not going in alphabetical order at all. But Terrence, do you actually want to walk me through building some of these models?
Yeah, sure. Okay. What do you want me to tell you? For class, you just put a title.
Yeah, give me. Yeah.
Yeah. So for class book, it would just be title, char field, whatever the length you want it to be. So I guess length 255, that seems to be the default length.
Awesome. Okay,
I think you need to put unique. I can't really actually remember.
I think we decided we didn't want to do that. Thank you. I actually forgot about that. Awesome. So we've got a basic book model. What should we build? What's the next step?
The next one, well, since that's all that one has, you go with class author.
Okay. Models. Model. Yep, I remember that has, it's going to be a char field too.
Yes.
Is it, was it
It's
just
name.
name?
Yeah, name.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, just keep on guiding me. This is awesome.
The next one is genre. It's going to be type. And yeah, I mean, that's all the models. That's all the ones you need that I can see.
All right, awesome. Thank you. How about putting together some of the relationships between our models now?
Oh yeah, that's out of my range. I think I'm done, you know.
Do you want to give it a shot with one of them or phone a friend?
Okay, what was the question again?
Yeah, let's just put together one of the relationships, whether it's book to author or book to genre.
Is that where the foreign key comes into play at?
It is, yes.
Okay, so yeah, I vaguely remember it. It's nah, man. I can visualize it, but I don't know how to type it out. I'd rather phone a friend at this point.
No worries. I think the main question is for like book and genre. We want a one-to-many relationship there. And I'm going to Google it right now. And if you want to, you can phone a friend, but which model do we want to define the foreign key on?
I think wouldn't we want to define it on genre?
I think so. I think that's correct. Let's see. So that would be book. And I just pulled up, I'll share the link. I literally Googled Django like many to one, and I got their Django docs. And I think you're correct, Terrence, that we want, let's see here. A genre can have many books. So I think that's correct that we want the foreign key here. I always have to double check this one. And based off of looking at, sorry, go ahead.
It's gonna be the other way around, isn't it? You're gonna have under book, you're gonna have a foreign key for genre because a genre can have many books. So the book would have a foreign key that references a single genre, and many books can have that foreign key pointing to that genre.
So I could.
I mean, I'm looking at the docs. So, oh yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Terrence.
No, I mean, looking at this doc, the article has, I guess, many reporters. Is that what I'm looking at here?
Right, that's what I'm looking at. That's, I think, yeah, and yeah, I could use another opinion because I'm looking at the Django doc and their example is a reporter and an article. And I'm assuming the relationship is a reporter has many articles. An article only has one reporter.
Okay. Okay, you're saying a book has many genres. Okay, I think. Oh
wait,
I think you're right.
Did
no,
I get it?
maybe you should do
to many.
Yeah.
Let's
A
see.
book has many genres, or a genre has
book-
many books.
Justin, you were right. I apologize. So let me talk through this. A book has one genre. A genre has many books. So I believe it goes here on the book, and I have to honestly, I would probably, at this point, like, take a piece of paper and draw it out.
Looking at it, a reporter has many articles, so could it be an author can have many genres? I mean, they usually specialize in one particular genre, but I think an author can write multiple genres at any time they want.
Say that again?
I said, looking at the doc, a reporter has many articles, so could we not do an author has many different genres that they write?
That is a good question. Right now, I think the plan is that we don't need to specify a direct link between author and genre. Like, if we wanted to find all the genres that an author has written books in, we would search for the author's books and grab the genres from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, gotcha.
For sure. Yeah. And you're absolutely correct. We don't want to like restrict the genre that an author can write in. Oh, I have that wrong there too. I apologize. I see exactly what you're saying. That should have been author. And
You gonna name that author then?
first, that's what's going on. There we go. And let me kind of jump back to the list for a minute. Danielle, what do we want to do for our book model? What should I do for the on delete behavior here? What are your thoughts
I
on
think cascade.
Cool. And can you describe what that will do?
So in the case that you remove one book from the database, it would also remove like all its connections in author, right?
So if I delete a book, the author will be deleted from the database too?
No, I mean like every connection that the author has with that book, like all the entries, right? So if that author is connected to that book in the author table, you would delete that that entry.
Close. So what this, in a general sense, you're correct, but to be more specific, what we're saying here within this foreign key relationship is that if I delete an author, we will delete all their books. I believe that's correct. Does that make sense to folks? I'm going to check in with the class.
I think
Yeah, I think it's when author is deleted, what happens on the author being deleted.
Right.
Adam,
And Daniel, I may just have misunderstood what you were trying to say there as well.
Yeah. No, I think I was wrong. I was saying it the other way around.
Got it.
But I think it's true. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. An author is deleted and then it cascades and deletes all their books.
I'm confused. I thought we were doing a mini relationship between the books and the authors. And then we were doing the foreign key the book for the genre.
No, you're totally right. I may have gotten super confused along the way. And if so, I apologize. I think you're totally correct, Hunter. I think I got confused. So we want that yeah.
So if you
Something
take line 9 and stick it under genre, then I was
Should,
you could take line 9, stick it under genre, and then obviously change after the parentheses, change genre to book. And then under author, because book would come first, and then author would have the many to many field of books. That's how I envision it.
I think
Because right now you have it where you would have an instance of a book would have a property called book.
Oh,
That's what line 12 does. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So that should be changed. So I believe from looking at the
We're saying that a genre has many books, right? So shouldn't book be underneath genre?
Based on looking at the Django docs, I think we defined the foreign key on the many side of the relationship. Like if I look at the docs, a reporter has many articles. In that doc link that I shared, I'll throw it in again. I always get a little confused by this, to be completely honest.
So I want to just add my approach because I get confused by this stuff pretty commonly too. I think it's easy to get tripped up just looking at these models here, but I do have a much better understanding of like the raw SQL. So if you're kind of fuzzy on how this should be, I would say just like run the migrations and then look at your database in P-SQL and then ask yourself if that's what you wanted.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I think now is a great time to do that. I am pretty sure that it's in the right spot. And I think one good way to think about it might be is that the foreign key lives on the many side of the relationship, because the primary key lives on the one side. And then on the many side, we need to have a reference back to the one or to rephrase, the foreign key lives on the many side of the relationship, I think is how I'm going to keep it straight in my head. And again, I do apologize. I definitely got mixed up at one point when we were doing this. So thank you for bearing with me. And Hunter, thank you for pointing that error out.
Yeah, the way I look at it is if we were in the admin panel creating a book, the genre would have like a drop down arrow to select, or a drop down field to select, or the book would have a drop down field for genre to select a genre.
Like, to jump over to our diagram for a minute. This is kind of mixing writing styles. But a book has an ID of a primary key. A genre will have an ID too. I'll just put it here. And our genre is going to have a book ID. And that's how we get the one-to-many, where that many genres can point to a book. And in fact, I would love to get an arrow going over there.
If you want to look to the left of those, I created the tables.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Logan, I am actually not certain if it doesn't matter where the foreign key is, to be honest. My gut says it does because the relationship is not the same in both directions. But I'm not 100% on that. Zach, that's awesome. Thank you. I'll just throw this up there for a sec and then
Adam,
run some migrations. Yeah.
could you just add a comment in there in the database of the foreign key needs to go on the mini side of their relationship?
Yeah, that's a great idea. And that's a JavaScript comment.
I don't even trust my own commenting anymore. I just always have to do command/.
A genre has many books. A book has one genre. That is still, I'll just leave that. I'll just leave that because I'm going to get lost in description again. Yeah, I think, Raphael, I think that was a great idea about running the migrations. We'll do that. We'll look at the SQL quickly and then we'll take a break. And let me pull up my cheat sheet.
So, I mean, in general, I'd say like one of my biggest frustrations with how other people code is that I think a lot of people tend to dwell a lot on like the code that they've written in their editor, and they don't think very hard about the program that's running on their computer. Like the whole point of writing the code is so you can run a program. Like if the program isn't running how you want it to, just like look at what it is doing instead of just thinking so hard about the code that you wrote. I don't know. I mean, they're both important, but a lot of people like don't know how to inspect what their application is actually doing and will just like work entirely in their editor.
Writing codes based on errors.
So Raphael, while he's writing this, let's say we put that foreign key in the wrong spot. When you looked at your database, like what would be that clue of that's the wrong spot?
Let's give me one moment, and then I think it'll be easier to look at the database and then answer that question. I do need a quick reminder of what I'm doing wrong here. I am in.
Did you add library app to your installed apps in settings.py?
Oh, thank you. That is exactly what I did not do. Oh, you know what? Thank you so much for mentioning that, because there's a couple things we're going to have to do in settings.py. Does that look correct for library app, just doing that?
Yeah.
Awesome. And then database, we need to change that to SQL. And the name is just going to be library. I'll just do library app. We should do that. And now I believe the library app. Okay, awesome. Let's try that one more time. Thank you so much. Ooh. What did this not like? Oh. So I forgot to install our ORM library CycloPG2. And this should be done in just a moment. Awesome. I think we can take a quick look at this migration and see if there's anything interesting here. Gonna be honest, I think we're better off just kind of doing what you were suggesting, Raphael. So I'm going to run the migrations. And now we can look in our database. Okay, we can't use Rosetta. And let's take a look here. I believe /L lists the databases. /C will connect me to the library app database. And then if I do /D, we get all this information and we see all these tables that it created. And the ones we're interested in are really book and genre. And if I do that /D and the name of the table, I should get some information on that table. And we have our primary key as expected. We can see that, let's see here. The book has a genre ID, which is an integer, and Django ORM has created that for us. And that is our foreign key right here, genre ID. And there's this sort of B tree data structure that's sort of an index type thing that's keeping track of that. And then under here, under foreign key constraints, we see it tells us in much longer words that genre ID is a foreign key that references genre. Sorry. Yeah. So on the book table, we have a foreign key named genre ID that references the genre. And then if we look real quick at library app book, oh, I'm sorry, library app genre. I apologize. We see that it has an ID column and a type, and that it is referenced by the book table. So that sounds about right, that there's one genre per book. Many books can reference it. Does that make sense to folks? And do folks have any questions before we take a break? Okay, let's take a break. It's 9:42. Maybe just come back at 10, take an 18-minute break. The good news is we have more data models to build. And it does sound like that's a good area of focus for us. And let me jump back to models PY, and I'll leave that up here. Yeah, and just to recap, our relationship is that we have a book can only belong to one genre. A genre has many books that belong to it. So on the many side of that relationship, we define the foreign key so that our book model will have a genre field that we can use to find the genre it belongs to. Cool. This has been awesome, folks. Thank you so much. Let's take a good break, get up, stretch around, and I'll see everyone at 10. Resume the recording. Anything folks want to maybe review in the code, review in the diagram before we keep on going? And let me share my screen. Okay, awesome. I think the next step, so I'm going to guide us a little bit here, but the next step is we want to add some fixture data now that we have our data model set up. So let's look at the list of people and see what we got here. Dennis, can you hear me, sir?
I can.
Awesome. Can you maybe walk me through a little bit of what we need to do to create some mock sample data, to add some fixture data here in our application?
You can make some fixtures as JSON files.
Correct. Yes, sir. Exactly. And as always, when I'm asking folks questions, you can phone a friend or pass the question stick, however, whichever metaphor you prefer.
Hey, Adam,
Yes.
aren't we missing like a couple of things in the model? It's only like half done.
Quite possibly. You mean the relationship between
Or your author's not connected to anything and you don't have the many-to-many relationship with the
that
with the
is a very good
join
point,
table.
Justin. Yeah, we haven't built that. And actually, this is a good moment to talk about this. Let's pause and think about this, because there's two ways to do it. We could add in that many-to-many relationship, or we already ran a migration. So we will have to run another migration. If we create fixture data, can we then kind of iteratively add the author into the mix?
Is that still for me?
You know, that's more of a general question, I think, because we haven't talked about this a lot.
Yeah, I have no idea, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. The short answer is, I think we can. And Dennis, I apologize. I'm going to circle back to you, but just because Justin raises a good point, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this rolling a bit. And actually, Dennis, I could use your help. Justin, let's table that question and start building some fixture data for what we have and then circle back to it. And I think what we're going to see is that we might be able to make a lot of progress with what we have and then iteratively add on top of what the code we write, that relationship between authors and books. Does that sort of make sense? Like that is almost its own feature that we can implement separately. as a next step. Let's see how far we get. We may circle back. Dennis, you want to maybe just kind of walk me through for some genres, what this fixture file should look like?
You would start it off as a list, and then inside a list, you're gonna have objects.
Yep.
And each of those objects, you're gonna have, let's see. You're gonna have the model.
Yep. One moment. I'm just throwing the fixture docs in the link. And our model here is
library app dot whatever model name you had in models. Yeah.
Yep, genre. What other fields do we need?
Primary key? I don't know.
Yep. And then what's the last thing we need so we can put the data that we care about in the genre?
Fields.
Yep. So, and just to recap, folks, the structure here for a fixture, inside the directory of the Django app, I've created a directory named fixtures, and I've created a JSON file named genres, named whatever I want, really. And it is a JavaScript array or list, as we call it in Python. An array of objects. We have a model property that is the name of the model, and it has to start with the name of the Django app dot model name. We have to add a field, a property for the primary key, and we have to just make up our primary keys when we create fixtures. And then for the actual model fields, like type, that goes in another object called fields. I'll add Western. And what are some other genres that folks would like to see in the mix? Not a trick question.
Mystery.
Awesome, I love it. One or two more, please.
Fantasy.
Awesome.
Science fiction.
Yep, I love it. And I, as a big science fiction and fantasy fan, appreciate them being separate genres.
Children's.
Children's.
No,
That is
no,
also a
okay.
good call. Children's books are great, by the way. I don't like the really good children's books. Like, I feel like if I went back and reread like Roald Dahl, I would probably really enjoy it. I'm leaving out the apostrophe just to make life easier. And that is our fixtures data for genres. So
you have to change the primary keys on the other ones too.
Oh, thank you so much. That is very important. Yeah, that is one of the dangers of copying. The good news is I'm pretty sure we would have gotten an error message that would have told us about that. But that, yeah, that is a really good catch. So kind of as to your point, Justin, like, and this is something I wanted to demonstrate a little today because I think it can be an approach that's helpful on assessments and projects at larger projects, essentially, as our things get larger. Like, the more we can break our work into really small pieces and kind of like Raphael was saying, like, get our program running and see the results of it and making it work, the easier our life is. So the fact that we can add this genre fixtures file here without having to do the work of that many-to-many relationship is a huge plus, because now we can run this fixture, put that data in the database, make sure we don't have a typo or anything weird somewhere else, and just flesh out that feature. Does that sort of make sense to folks, kind of some of the value of this approach? Hopefully that's a yes. I've got P-SQL open here, so I'm going to open another tab. I'm going to activate my Python environment because that's what I need to do. Let's see here. Yeah, I just stuck my Python environment in the same directory, which isn't the best, but that's okay. So my Python environment is now activated. My project structure is a little nested, but I'm in the same directory as manage.py. And we load a fixture by calling manage.py and using the load data command line command. And then the file name, but without the file extension. So in this case, genres, because our file name is genres.json. And that's awesome. And I'm going to jump back to the database here. I'm going to clear this. I'm going to do select star from genres. And it's singular.
It should be like library app underscore genres or something.
Yeah, thank you. There we go. It only took me a million years. And now we've got our data in here, which is awesome. And I actually kind of want to run with this iterative approach even further and jump from the models to, let's build a route real quick just to view our genres, because then we have a full end-to-end feature and we can see a list of genres. So I'm gonna, let's see, just kind of running down the list. Evan, can you hear me?
Unfortunately, yeah.
I love it, man. You have to have a sense of humor. Let's create a route and a Django template to display these genres from the database. So let's, and actually real quick, display list of genres. Evan, why don't you just walk me through the steps that we're going to do for that before we even write any code, just at a very high level. And just to get you started, step one would be create a route. You know what I mean? Like in the URLs PY.
Yeah, would I be able to phone a friend here?
I'm sorry?
He was calling on Skylar.
Yeah, yeah, you can totally, you can totally phone a friend if you want, man. No, you know, I want to push people a bit, but there's really no pressure, and it's a team effort. So phoning a friend is part of the process.
Yeah, I phoned Skylar.
Okay, Skylar, can you kind of walk us through the steps that we're going to want to do to be able to display our list of genres to the user?
There's a bug in our code. What happened here?
Okay, I'm gonna kind of make an executive decision and just keep running down the list. What I'll do, let me write down the steps to model it.
Looks like Maya's ready to go.
Oh yeah, Maya, what's up?
No, I actually had a question.
Yes.
So with the fixtures, so we're using the fixtures because it's an easier way for us to import our data into our database and make sure that it's all correct. So if you were to run that command again, would it allow you to re-enter those and you'd have duplicates?
That is a great question. My guess is that the fixture program, which is probably connected on some level to the migration tool, is smart enough to keep that from happening. Worst case, we would get a series of errors about duplicate primary keys not being allowed. So let's see what happens. So that is a good question. So it says install 5 objects from one fixture. I could be wrong. My guess is that it has not added anything to the database, especially because to do that, it would have to have these duplicate primary keys. But let's see what happens. Yeah, so it's smart enough to not create duplicates. If I changed this fixture file, then something different might happen. Which would be interesting to see. Like we could do that actually. Let's add one more genre and see what happens.
Romance.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. What's that show? Is it Outlander? It's like the guy who travels back in time to Scotland.
I think so. I couldn't get past the first 10 minutes.
She travels back in time, not him.
Oh, she does. Got it. Thank you.
You have to
I
change your
haven't, a friend
primary.
likes it a lot. I have not seen it. Okay. So it says installed 6. So it looks like it is smart enough to add that new one. Let's see. Yeah, and now we have. Wait, did we lose children?
Since you have the same primary key, it overwrote.
Oh, interesting. Okay, interesting. So the fixture, this is a little dangerous. I had two model instances with the same primary key and one overwrote the other. Now this should do more of what we expected. Thank you so much for catching that. Awesome. And now we have romance. Cool. Yeah. Does that help, Maya? That's a really good question. This was actually really good to see.
Yeah, so I have another question that I feel like
Can you say that one more time? Your audio cut out for a minute.
may answer this. Or say we did have an error in or something, we wanted to update it. Then like, does it just essentially just only stick to the data within your fixtures each time?
Could you ask that one more time? The audio cut out for a moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So like if we were to make an update to any of these fixtures that we had already done before,
Mhm.
will it also still, it's only going to have the data in the database that we have in here when we find the last time that we run it?
Right. That's a good question.
So like if we misspelled history and we went back to correct it.
Right. Yeah. So I think what's happening is that if we change something, it will overwrite. So if I do this, I think this will change history. Yeah. Yeah, I think things might, especially with primary keys or foreign keys, or like, we only have one field on that genre model right now. But if like we had an optional field and we added it, it would probably overwrite. It looks like what it's doing is the fixture takes prominence, like whatever is in the database. If there's a conflict with the fixture, the database just gets overridden and whatever's in the fixture goes in the database.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's the kind of thing that like, especially when you're using like tools like this on a regular basis, become like really important to learn and because there's all sorts of gotchas and stuff that pop up.
I'm more so trying to avoid having to drop my database multiple times while I'm working on this assessment.
I see. Gotcha. Yeah. For sure. I mean, and that said, I think dropping the database is not the advantage of the fixture is that it should make dropping and restarting the database less painful. Which should hopefully be the case. I know there's still a couple command line steps that have to be run there, but that's one of the goals of using fixtures. Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, these are good questions. And for things like that, to be honest, like when I start at a new company and there's lots of different commands for different command line tools that they have for their build tool or how to push something to the server, like I'll often just have a text file full of like the commands I need to run to do this or do that, and like kind of build my own little playbook. And I could see that being useful for like how to drop in and rebuild a database or something like that, for example. Because I know that stuff can eat up time, like especially like when we're learning it. You know, once you've done it 1,000 times, it's not so bad, but the first 1,000 times can be rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. No, that was a really good question. That was really good for us to see too, because I think it will help like while working on the assessment. And that's kind of one of the goals too here, is to see hopefully how we can kind of break work down into smaller pieces that helps make our life a little easier. And like right now, hopefully seeing how we can just focus like on kind of getting genres working a bit end to end will be interesting and useful. And in that vein, can I believe Skylar, can you kind of maybe walk us through building a route so we can view our genres?
Sure. So just make a new path then, right here on line 20. Just make a new one.
Okay, awesome. And what do you want to call it?
Go ahead.
I'll just call it genres. And so this is, I am not in URLs PY for the library app.
Right.
Is that okay?
You can do it.
Okay. Awesome. And then where is our view? What view function do we want to call and where should we create that? Bless you.
Let's see. Probably just create like an actual view, but then if we do that, probably actually need to move it. Maybe then, I don't know. Probably need to move it over to the other
the library app.
Yeah, probably over there. So that way we can create a view, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to view it, right?
Yeah. Let's set it up.
Well, we can finish right here on line 21. We'll just be like includes or include, I'm sorry. And you have to also import that.
Say that
So
one more time. I'm sorry.
if you go to line 17 on path, do comma and include. Yeah, there you go. Yep. And then in line 21, now we can be include and then put in the parentheses, quotes, the name of the app, which would be library_app .urls. Yep, there you go. That'll point to the actual.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
What I do is I just copy this URLs. Yeah, that too. I just copy this URLs file and paste it into the app. And then I just edit it accordingly. That's what I personally do, but you don't have to.
Great idea. I'm totally going to copy you on that. So let me go ahead and do that. And yeah, so to recap, in our Django project on the base path, we're going to point it to the routes we define here in our library app. And thank you for walking me through that, Skylar. And that's what we're doing with this include statement. And now we're going to just copy and paste this URLs PY into the URLs PY for our library app. Whoa, there we go. And we don't need that admin. And now we can do genre. Probably don't need include.
Right.
I don't
need that.
Need admin here.
Yeah.
Yep. And I know there's something about like views and like a template file? Do I have to create a directory or something?
Yeah, so you have two choices right here. You can, if you already know the name of the view function that you're gonna make, you can call it here, import views, and then make the function, or we can go straight to the views file, make it, and then come back here and finish.
Okay, let's, what do you want to call our function here to list all the genres?
We'll just call it genres.
Okay, I'm gonna be a little more verbose. I apologize.
This genres, there you go, that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Either way is totally fine, just both for me and for readability. And it sounded like do I need to create a templates directory? Do I have that right?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, oh yeah, how do you want to do it? Sorry, I should just let you.
Oh, yeah, all good. Okay, so I'd just like to finish up the list genres and the views. So go to views.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, thank you. I forgot about this, to be honest.
Yeah, no problem.
Genres.
Yep, request, right? And then just return render for now, just return render and then request. Or yeah, you can do that too. So request that we can actually point to an HTML file that we're going to create right now.
Got
So
it.
we could be like, yeah. I don't know if you have to call templates, but you could be like pages/list genres, yeah. And then we're not returning any HTML, or I'm sorry, any additional data for now. So we can go straight to the making of the template.
Awesome, thank you. And thank you for walking me through this. So
Yeah, no problem.
want a templates directory, correct?
Yep.
And then a pages directory inside here?
Yeah.
Got it. And then in here, we want to create the genres.html.
Yep.
This genres, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this genres, yeah.
And, oh man, Emmett.
Do HTML. I think you just write it out .html or something like that.
I wonder if.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Yeah. I think I'll just leave all that as is and just say the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And I will start a server for us. I want to say, I feel like that is not the correct command. Can someone remind me of the command to start the server?
I think it's asking you to activate your virtual environment first.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Is that the correct command, run server?
It is, but you didn't import your views into your URLs.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and.
That's the wrong one.
Yep, thank you. We don't need that. And over here. Yep, and in fact, I've got the squiggly here from .views.
Import. I think you could do that from that import views, right?
You're probably correct. My Python is rusty. Okay, and this does seem to be working. We've got a dev server link here. That's okay. We haven't really defined anything for our homepage.
I think the extras, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Was it plural genres / genres?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's walk through it and see.
You're sure you're just missing the extra forward slash that you placed in the front in your path?
Yeah. Good one, man. Nice.
Django. Django. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Awesome. Great. Now we've got Hello World. Skylar. Beautiful. Thank you. Let me thank you so much for your help. Let me kind of run down the list. I'm going to start jumping around a little bit. How about Kaylee, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Could you help us grab the genre data that we need and put it into our template so we can see the list of genres?
Yeah. So I guess first we're gonna want to import the model.
Yeah, good call. From models genre.
And then next, we're gonna need to, I guess, do a objects.get. And I guess also, I guess we want to get it by the ID. I'm trying to remember what the models looks like, but I think we had an ID.
Right. It does. Right now, we just need all the genres.
Okay. I think we can do an all then, dot all.
I think so as well. Okay, awesome. Let's
And then yeah, we can print them first, I guess, to see.
yeah, I'm just gonna see if it, I'm not,
They're right there, all those genre objects.
oh, they're genre objects. Okay, that's good enough. We know they're there. That's perfect. Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, Kaylee, what's our next step here?
So I guess now you need to pass it as data in the render.
Like as a dictionary?
Yes. And so I guess you give it a title, all genres, if you want to do the same thing. And then just, yeah, the all genres.
Okay.
And then now you should be able to actually work with that in the HTML.
Yeah, and I sort of remember this was.
Yeah, like loop through it. I'm trying to remember.
I have to look up the docs for this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone knows this off the top of your head, please feel free to chime in.
Just do genre and genres.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Adam.
Yes, sir.
I also think that on the where you're getting the models, you are also at the end you have to do that values, because at this point you're getting objects, so you're not getting the values.
Oh, thank you. Let's give that a shot. And then over here, how do we want to?
You could do like a you could put it in a list if you wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and finish that up because I think I want our focus to be more on the data side of things, and I know that we've done a lot of this. And then I believe it's double curly brackets.
Yeah.
Genre dot type. Let's see. Awesome.
Nice.
Kaylee, thank you so much. That was great. Cool. So, and what I'm going to do now is commit my code. So I'm just moving back so that I haven't added this directory yet. And dot will just add everything that's not tracked. And I'm just going to, I'll have to clean this up later. But I just want to get it in there. And then the nice thing about this now is if I make a mistake, I can go back to a state in my program where I'm correctly listing all the genres. So to kind of circle back to your question, Justin, about, adding in that book's author relationship, we totally could have. I wanted to switch gears a little bit just to show us like a way of developing that's like, it kind of breaks work into smaller pieces. It's a little more iterative and end-to-end. Like we did this one tiny feature of listing all the genres, but then by getting it working end-to-end, we get a lot of nice code and things working. And I think it can be a really good way to work because it's very efficient too. Like it's harder to get lost, I think, doing it this way. And so I kind of wanted to demonstrate that a little bit. How are folks doing? Do we want to break or should we keep going? Okay. Let's keep going. And I think, Justin, it is time now to kind of return to the point you raised about putting together the many-to-many relationship for author and book. And just to very briefly jump to our awesome Fig Jam and this awesome diagram that Zach made. I want to zoom in just a touch more, but I can't. Just to recap, we have this genre book relationship of a genre can have many books of one to many. I'm not sure if the arrow is pointing in the right way, but that's fine. Just having this is awesome. And now we want this many to many relationship because, and we have the join table that's already added. Beautiful. Thank you so much, whoever did that. We want a many to many relationship between a book and an author, which will involve building a join table and apparently also playing tic-tac-toe. So we're going to create this join table that tracks the connection between a book and an author, and that lets us connect multiple authors to a book and a book to multiple authors. Some of my favorite fantasy or science fiction books had multiple authors. Justin, and actually, do you want to maybe get the ball rolling on this?
What do you want? What do you
Yeah,
need?
totally. Yeah, and actually, it's a good time to pause and ask questions. So the next step that we want to do is connect authors to books, and it's going to be a many-to-many relationship.
Okay, so make a class.
Yeah, and actually, let me just check in with the class if people have any questions before we dive into that, because I know I just did a recap and we did a big shifting of gears. So I do want to check in with folks. Okay, cool. And does this kind of
Were we gonna let the database make the table, or were we going to make it ourselves?
The join table? If we can, we're going to let the ORM do as much work as it can.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to try and
So
have.
are we not gonna do it in here?
Sorry?
You just need the many to many.
Are we gonna add a model here?
Yeah. Is a good question. So, Raphael, I know you mentioned that we don't have to create a book author model for our join table. I feel like when I had looked in the Django docs at many-to-many relationships, I did see them doing that. Was I mistaken, or is there also that there's another approach?
I don't know. Why don't you just declare many field on the book model and see what happens?
Okay, I'm a fan. Let's do it.
Yeah, so do an author under book. Author equals.
Got it.
I guess it'd be authors, but yeah, whatever. Models dot many to many.
Yeah, we can do authors.
Yeah.
That's probably better, to be honest. Many field.
Point it towards author.
Thank you,
So
sir.
normally if we had a join table, we'd put through and then we point it to the join table, but in this case, we're not doing that. So I guess just try putting related name books.
Okay, I love it. Author, name, books.
We can see if this works without a join table.
Okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Related name. Oh, does this
Probably
need
need quote symbols.
Quotes.
Yeah, thank you. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. I am not in the right directory. 9D5. Okay. Manage, I'm in the same directory as manage PY now. And I believe it's make migrations. Manage.py, make migrations. Let's see if
I don't
need
think you're in your virtual environment in this one.
Oh yeah, thank you. I have so
So just
many.
close out those other consoles.
Yeah, thank you. I will, yeah, let me do that real quick. Get the heads up on that. Yeah, so the .. means like move backwards one directory because the vem is one directory back. So we definitely made a migration. Let's take a quick look here, see what it does. It adds a field to the book model. It adds a many-to-many relationship. That looks like what we want. Let's run it and see what happens. So it has applied the migrations. Let's pop over to our database and take a look. So we want library app underscore book and library app underscore author. I'll make this a bit bigger and I'll close this out just for a minute. So our book table, it looks like it is referenced by library app book authors. So it looks like there may have been a new table created here. That is our join table. Let me look at the list of tables again to confirm because I did skim that rather quickly. And yeah, it's right here, which is awesome. Yeah, Raphael, that was awesome. Thank you. So we have this library app author table and a library app book table. And those get created from our models, author and book, respectively. And all we had to do was to find this many-to-many field here. And then the ORM did the work of creating a join table, library app book authors. Excuse me, I just need to grab a drink of water. And let's look at that join table. And this looks pretty much like what we'd expect, a book ID and an author ID and a bunch of foreign key constraint information that essentially says we reference the author table and the book table. So that's pretty cool. Let me check in and see if folks have any questions or things that'd be good to review or go over with what we just did.
So not over what you just did, but as far as actually implementing this in your JSON file, how exactly would that look like?
That's a great question. You mean, yeah, like adding a fixture now with author and book information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that now. And does someone who maybe hasn't done some navigating yet want to volunteer to walk us through that process? Okay, let me select a volunteer. What about Meredith? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Could you help us get started on creating a fixture file for some books and authors, similar to what we did here with genres? And again, the rules are the game are, at any point you can phone a friend or pass the questions to.
Okay. So we have to make a new file, right?
Yeah.
Books.json in the fixtures file.
Okay, and let me ask real quick. Do you have any thoughts? Which one would be better to start with, books or authors?
I don't know. Does the order matter?
It does,
Okay.
because one depends on the other, but we can also get the ball rolling and we can kind of see what happens as we do it. Sorry, that wasn't a very good answer. I apologize, because that was a good question. The short answer is, so authors, a book needs an author.
Mhm.
An author doesn't need a book.
Okay.
So if we create books before we have authors, then that's a problem. But if we create authors before we have books, that's okay.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So let's, and that's something too, I think that is kind of new for us, which is kind of thinking about this sort of sequencing, which does require some extra thought when kind of developing iteratively this way. But the win is that we kind of get to be a little more productive and get features out the door a bit quicker. Yeah, let's get rolling with the authors.
Okay. So you need, yep. And then we need to create a dictionary.
Yep.
And then we need a key called model. And then library app. .author, yep, for your.
Yep, and I'm just going to confirm it's singular. Okay, awesome. Model, I think we want a primary key.
Yep.
Okay, and then what do you want to do for the fields?
And then I guess for the author, we just said name, right?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, give me some authors to create.
Roald Dahl.
Probably misspelling his name.
I think that's right.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, how about some other folks? We can always
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
William Gibson.
Sure, I like him. Let's get there's fantasy western. Any other? Let's get a couple other authors.
Justin Peterson.
Hey, Adam, I have a quick question for you.
Yes, absolutely.
So could we make the authors and the books files at the same time and then just load the data, or do we have to do the authors JSON, load the data, then make the books and then load it?
Yeah, that is a great question. I am not certain. We might have to do the second one that you said. We might have to create the authors and load that and then create the books. Because the books will have to have foreign key references to authors. It's possible that the migration fixture tool is smart enough to sort that out, but there's a very good chance we'll have to do it in 2 steps.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And actually it'd be really good to see. So I definitely think we should go ahead and give that a shot. Justin Peterson.
Hey, Adam.
Yes.
What's your favorite Justin Peterson novel?
I had no idea who that is.
I definitely said Justin Peterson. It was me. That was,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
You just
thank you.
aliased me immediately. All right, it's fine.
Okay. I'm gonna throw in an author, Bruce Sterling, just because I know that he and William Gibson did a science fiction book that I like, so we can have a book with two authors. I think I'm gonna throw in J.K. Rowling. I'm gonna throw in Louis L'Amour, who wrote Westerns. I'm gonna get rid of the single quote just to be safe. Meredith or anyone else, any last authors that they want to throw in the mix?
I think that looks good.
Sorry, someone was saying something?
Haruki Murakami.
Sure, yeah. Okay, and let me fix these primary keys. And then Meredith, we can throw in some books and we can run it and see what happens. So I think that would be really interesting to do. Okay, I think that's correct. And JSON. So
You have two of the same author.
With the same primary key or?
No, just you have two Louis L'Amour.
Oh, thank you. I wonder who else was supposed to be there. Thank you. I'm gonna get this one rolling, especially as we have some books that we can tie to authors, then we can also throw in some data here. I apologize for this taking a bit of time. Let's see, there was it Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. What was it? Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, those are both.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Awesome. Or you can just get two of them in there. What's a Roald Dahl book? James and the Giant Peach.
Yep.
Thank you. And let's see. Justin, what's the title of your book?
Save
I
our
have a book?
seas.
What, Alicia?
Nothing.
No,
Oh, that.
we're doing it. What was it?
Losing your mind gracefully.
With Python.
In parentheses.
Leaving the parentheses out just to be on the safe side with this fixture data. And then there was Lord of the Rings. And that's a pretty great collection.
Currently, I have a co-author.
Oh, who's co-author?
No, just Zach dictating my book name.
Sure, we can do, yeah, let's do it. Okay. Yeah, thanks for being patient as we fill out this data.
Yeah, I think his last name is Fair.
Zach, what's your first name?
Yeah, it's fair.
Okay, I think Zach Fox is like a comedian slash rapper. Okay, let me get these primary keys right. And Meredith, I'm gonna need some help with the fields for the books. Specifically, how do we enter in the relationship to the author?
I'm not actually sure. Can I phone a friend?
Totally. Who would you like to phone?
Zach.
If I can alt out, I'm giving a COVID test to some kids at home.
Say that again, Zach.
I'm in the middle of administering a COVID test to my kids.
Oh,
Someone else can take
yeah.
over.
Meredith, Zach couldn't pick up the phone.
Would somebody like to volunteer?
Yeah, someone who hasn't maybe tackled it yet.
What was the question again?
We need to add some foreign keys to our fixtures.
I would need to see or actually I think wouldn't it just be author _ ID as the key name?
I believe so. I'm not totally certain, to be completely honest. I think also then the question becomes, what happens when we have more than one author?
Would it be just separated by commas?
There would have to at least be a list.
Yeah, I thought if you had a mini to mini and you made a fixture, you just did the ID with like a list and then separate each ID by commas, but I'm not sure if that'll actually work.
Yeah, let's find out. So I'm looking through the docs. I guess we can always restart our database if we need to.
So Adam, isn't that where we would make a fixture for the book authors table, and then we'd put the foreign keys there, or the keys in that table, because that's like our joint table.
We already have a book authors table.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
but I mean, like, would we need to make a fixtures file and populate that in a fixture? And then when we load the book author fixture, it would populate the book author table with the primary keys of the books and the authors.
So I am not sure. Okay. I don't think we need to create a fixture for the join table. And I've been doing a little Googling. I'll share the link I found just because it was fixture data. I wanted to hunt a little more. And I think in some ways, the big takeaway for this might be when we get to the point where we have foreign key relationships, we probably shouldn't make so much fixture data, so we only have one or two things to work with. I definitely got a little excited about that. Dalton, I think you're correct based on this link I found and shared, and from looking at it, that does seem to be the case with authors and genre. What I want to do in the interest of time and to manage complexity is, Meredith, although I'm very curious to see if we could do it all in one go, I am going to sequence our migration. And I think this is a good practice anyway. So we are going to run the migration to create the authors first, because there are no foreign keys involved there. And then we'll add in the authors as foreign key information to our books fixture, and then we'll run that fixture as well. Does that make sense to folks? I know I just went over a lot of stuff. Cool. Yeah, and just to reiterate, we have our authors, and the authors don't depend on any other table. They don't have any foreign keys. So that makes it a very safe fixture to load. So we're going to load that fixture to create that data in the database first. On the off, and then we're going to add in author primary key information to our books. So we'll have foreign keys here. Each book will have a foreign key pointing to its author or authors. And then we'll run that fixture. And I want to do that just because that way we just decrease the scope of what could be causing any error messages that come up and just simplify things. So to do that, I need to make sure I am somewhere where the Python virtual environment is running, and it is. And I'm going to run load data for authors. And that seems to work great. Let's take a look here. A library app authors. Author maybe? Yeah. Awesome. So we have our authors, including our two stellar graduates who made it in the book business, Justin and Zach. And now, and the ID is their primary key, which is what we'd expect. It's what we hard coded. And now I believe, based on that link I shared and what Dalton was saying, that the way that we identify the foreign key relationship is like this. So for this,
Adam, real quick,
yes.
You may have went over it already, but so if you were to create a fixture and you had accidentally forgot to do the PK, wouldn't Django do that automatically for you, or is that not how that would work?
I haven't tried it. It might throw an error. I'm only basing that off of the fact that the official Django documentation does indicate us setting the primary key.
Cool.
But yeah, that's a good question. I would have to just do some trial and error to see what happened there.
I think that's only in terms of building the actual model and importing it, migrating it. It'll create the primary key for you, but in a fixture, you need to indicate.
Yeah, the docs seem to indicate that that is the case.
Figure that in your fixtures, you're describing a bunch of individual objects that have relations to other specific objects in your fixtures. So Django can't automatically generate the IDs because otherwise it wouldn't know what relates to what. So you have to supply the primary keys so it knows, which authors belong to which books or whatever.
In your guys' experience, when you guys have worked at startups, whenever you're pushing a new product to production, does the database usually go live with 0 data in it? Or are there always going to be like, I don't know, like maybe the workers' data?
I mean, when you publish like a brand new project for the first time, there's like probably no user data in it. There might be like some tables with like some starter data that isn't like user data, but just kind of like lists of values that other things might refer to. Like you probably have almost no data for a brand new application, but the users will fill it up pretty quick.
I guess really what I'm trying to get at is, so I know you can run like a command to create fixtures. So I guess I'm just saying, like, is writing fixtures like this only something we're doing for educational purposes, or is this something you also will do on the job?
It's very useful for testing. So beyond educational purposes, fixtures are great for testing your application because then you can guarantee that all of your tests start with the same database state. Like you're trying to test a function that queries the database, it's hard to know what you should expect from that function unless you also know what's in the database. So in order to get your tests to behave the same way every time you run them, you need the database to start in the same state. So one way you can do that is by using fixtures.
Cool, thank you.
Just to add on to that, for like application, like eBay, for example, I guarantee it's called like a dev environment or sometimes like a staging environment. Like there is a database at eBay filled with like real data, but it's used for to be able to run tests, to see what features look like for developers to like use and play with eBay, which is hugely important. And so like often like writing fixtures or having scripts to generate fixtures will be a way to get that information in there. It's gonna be interesting to see how this works with the multiple authors. Okay, let's see if I missed an author for anyone. And thanks for being patient with this. Okay, let's do it. Let's see what happens. We might run into a couple errors. We ran into a lot of errors. Book has no field name. Da 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 da.
Is it title instead of name?
That's quite possible. Let's see. Just one moment. It is title. So find name. Let's see. Replace title. And that looks like everything. And now if I search for name, it's not here. So we correctly updated that file. Let's run it again. Another error, which is not totally surprising either. Book has no field author. Let's see. So here we do authors because we made it plural. So let's do another find and replace. Oh, and I did something wrong because now it's, yep.
Yeah, I think you looped through it a few times.
Which is why you have to be careful with these things. We're just going to do that one manually. Let's save that. Let's search. Yeah. There's still one here. And there's a few more. Okay, sorry about this, folks. Let me just start from the top because let's get this right. Yeah, sometimes you can outsmart yourself with these tools. Let's try it again. Okay, again, the error is not surprising. And I think kind of realizing when you're gonna run into errors is part of the value. Int object is not iteratable. So I don't really know exactly, like it's not telling me the line, but I'm 99% sure that like this book, The Difference Engine, I know has 2 authors and it probably does not like this. So let's start there. Let's see if that.
I thought you would just repeat the like 59 and down. I thought you would put like the same exact book, but then add another author. Is that not how you do that?
For if we
Or
were
maybe that
adding a
would
row,
replace the author?
if we were adding a row to a join table, we would do something like that. As this is the book table, I think the second one would simply overwrite the first one.
Yeah, that makes sense. We did see that earlier.
Yeah, yeah. So now my approach is, and this is a good troubleshooting approach too. Like, I know that I don't know how to indicate multiple authors here in the fixture file, and I'm okay with that. I'm just going to do one author, make sure everything loads, And then honestly, we can maybe write some code to do that for us. Maybe we'll use the Django shell, the Python shell to do that and let the ORM do that work.
Do you want to try just a comma first and see if that works?
You know, that's a great idea, actually. Thank you, Alicia. It's, there's I don't think that's valid JSON. Let's see here, int object is not iteratable. So I'm seeing this again. So maybe the integer needs to be like a string value. Problem installing fixture, int object is not iteratable, library, blah, 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 field value 3. Yeah, and then if we can't sort this out, we might just pivot to building out the rest of our data model. I am not sure. I am not sure what the issue is. So in the interests of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this file.
Wait, actually, couldn't it be that authors needs to be author ID because that's what it reads in P-SQL, like the actual database?
I don't know. The truth is I don't know. I feel like I'm in a little bit of unknown territory here. The PK doesn't exist anywhere. Like fixtures kind of has its own format a little bit. You know what I mean? And I just don't want to get, I feel like we've already gotten a bit too lost in the weeds. So what I'm going to try doing is, excuse me, I just copied this whole file into another file. I'm just going to get rid of the author information and see if that will work. We can always add authors manually, and I don't think we made that a required field. And we'll see if this works or not. You know what? In the same vein, I'm going to dramatically simplify this file by only including one book.
Is this maybe a good time for a quick break?
Yeah, I think it is. If I can't get this working, it's definitely time for a break. Ooh, excuse me. Yeah, and it is 11 o'clock. Thank you, Raphael. Excuse me. Let's take a break. I'll sort this out. Oh, okay. There's a genre ID related error. So that's probably what we were missing. Yeah, let's take a break. What do people think? Come back at 11:30? What do you think, Raphael?
11:30 sounds good.
Let's take a break, come back at 11:30. Thank you for bearing with me, folks. I'll get this sorted out and report back, and then we can move on. See everyone in a bit. Thank you. And I think everyone will be pleasantly surprised because now that we got it sorted out, it's pretty painless. And if nothing else, hopefully my struggling and debugging was helpful. So to kind of recap the journey very quickly, we had created a bunch of fixture data for books, and we were trying to add authors, and we were getting errors. And honestly, the first mistake is this is too much fixture data. Like we want to start with like one thing because it makes it easier to debug when we run into issues. And then when we get that working, we want to add more. So I ended up doing that. I just made a different JSON file that just has one book. And in doing that, I discovered that I had forgotten to add the genre, which is required for a book, and that was producing an error. And so once I added that, I was able to add this book. This book's fixture correctly. And this error is now probably just because I already loaded it, I'm wondering. Yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about what that is because I already got the data in there and I know this is correct. And it might be because we have a unique on the title. And because there's also some relationships that I added in. But just to pop into the database. So here's our book that's now successfully in there, Neuromancer. And again, I think it was Dalton, thank you. It turned out you were totally correct. The way that we handle many-to-many relationships with fixtures is we do need to create those join table rows ourselves. And this is the name of the join table, book authors, that the Django ORM created for us. Just jumping back to the models, we created this many-to-many field on a book, so a book can have many authors. And when we ran that migration, the Django ORM created this join table book authors for us, which is awesome. And we do, when we're doing fixtures for many-to-many relationships, we do want to and have to manually create data for that join table. And that's what I'm doing here. To the book authors table, adding the book ID field and the author ID field. And let me show that book authors table real quick. So we can see it's a pretty simple join table. It's got its own primary key ID and then the ID of the book and the ID of the author. We didn't add a unique constraint or anything here. We totally could have. And then again, this I was able to run successfully. And if I look at everything from that join table, we now have a join table connecting our author to a book. And so I'm not sure if this one is going to complain if I run it again, but let's add another author here and see if that works. Yeah, I don't want to start debugging this again because I'm pretty sure at this point what we're running into is that like we have some unique constraints for things in certain places, or now that we're connecting tables, maybe we can't just create new fixture data that overwrites stuff. But
Hey, Adam.
Yeah.
So with the error, it looks like the reason it's not running is because in your urls.py you have an error.
Oh, well, that is actually very possible. I totally missed that. Thank you.
You need to add a comma.
Oh my God. Okay, so yeah. So this all might work great now.
And a comma after the last one too.
Thank you.
Potentially an underscore for author ID.
I
No.
wanted to be lazy and I just left it
Fair
like.
enough.
Sorry? Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, just for simplicity. Let's try that again. This could be.
Yes, now it's saying that you have a key that already exists.
Got it.
It's from your first picture.
Yeah, let's do. Oh, I don't have.
You didn't put a PK field in your.
Yeah,
pictures.
interesting. So this, someone was asking a question about that. I forgot about that. This answers that question. It does create the primary keys, but now we can't override. So honestly, the simplest solution at this point is we just create,
Drop the database.
no, we don't even have to do that. What we can do is, let's just create a new fixture file.
Adam, I think that you can just use that same one, but so under model, usually there's a PK equals
Yeah.
something. So I think you could have done it the same way, but just made it be known like the first one's PK1, the other one's PK2.
I think so too. I want to do this just to, and now this would have to be like PK3 or 4 or 5, or else it would overwrite. So I think it does make sense to add primary keys. Otherwise, I think life could get a little confusing. This should work okay. Yeah. And now if we go here, we have one book with 2 authors, which is great. So that's kind of how we would do this with fixtures. So hopefully that helps and will be useful to people to see a couple ways to do this and a couple troubleshooting techniques.
Can you just explain why sticking it in its own file fixed it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the issue was that I did not define a primary key here. And I don't know if it's not defining the primary key or if it's simply running this again because we got a unique constraint error somewhere in here. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so it probably wasn't even the primary key. This key, book ID, author ID 14, this one right here already exists. So I already ran this. The problem was not with the new join table row I wanted to create. The problem was running this one a second time. And Django ORM did not like that. It very well may be that if I had added a primary key field here, that would like force the fixture tool to override. But without the primary key, it does not appear to override and it says, hey, this key combination already exists. I don't want to overwrite that. Dalton, yes. This is a little bit in the weeds with the fixture tool. My main recommendation is do add the primary key table and just keep your initial fixture data set small. And I think that will eliminate a lot of, like, you won't run into these issues by doing that. Because I do think that not adding a primary key opens up this more complex behavior that honestly can get a little confusing. Dalton, yeah. Dalton or Francisco, what's up?
So I know at the beginning we were doing the same exact thing. We kept loading the same JSON file. I don't know if it was for books or authors. I can't remember exactly which one was the first one we did. But it wasn't popping up the error when we were doing it over and over again.
Right.
As long as we had the primary keys included.
Right. Yes. Let's find out real quick. Actually, so this join table, book ID 1, author ID 4, that's this fixture right here. Its primary key is 1. Let's do that. I think this might still fail. Okay, so that works. Yeah, which frankly is confusing. And if I remove this, I believe it will now fail. Yeah, honestly, this is a very confusing, I get why they're doing it. It is a source of huge potential confusion. Essentially, whoever wrote this code that that creates data in our database from the fixtures decided if a primary key is set, we should overwrite any row that already exists with that primary key. We overwrite. If a primary key is not set, we check all our validation rules, and if there's a validation error, we don't overwrite. And again, I think the solution is pick one way and stick with it. And I recommend setting a primary key so that you always overwrite, and that way your fixture data is always the source of truth. Like, you don't want to run a fixture and not be sure what's been changed. So I highly recommend always adding the primary key here. And that's what I would do in like a professional situation, running into this as often as I could. Francisco, yes.
And then, so with that, I guess I just have like a specific question. If we were to run this through the Django, and like, let's say we're trying to add another book that had these relationships to both author and genre, it would just populate like a drop-down menu if we were to use like a create view. So why is it that if we use a form, it would automatically populate the drop-down menu, but we have to hard code it if were we just hard coding it because we're using the JSON file rather than doing it through a create view property?
Yeah, you mean like, why are we hard coding the primary key here?
I mean, why do we even have to hard code the relationship between library app and book authors, where if we were to use a form,
I think I understand the
would
question.
just populate different genres to make the relationship.
It's a little bit like two ways of doing the same thing. Like with a fixture, we're not like with what you're talking about, where we write a template code and then we have code on the back end that's creating a model and stuff. We're doing that same work. Let me pull up a page. So just to kind of map that out, like, I was writing this out, but let's pretend it's something like create author in book or something. Like author equals author. Actually, I'm not going to do this here. Let me just map this out here. So new book request. Okay. So if we had this, right, let's not worry about the template, the view logic, the form. All that's done, the route is set up. This is our view function that receives a string that is the author's name and the book's name and genre name. We would have to do something like this. Genre equals genre objects get what was it, type? Type.
I see. So we're just hard coding it because it's part of the JSON file, and that's just the way that's just the way it works if you're doing it through JSON.
Yeah. So like the way we're doing here, we would get this data, and then let's assume this is a new author, right? Author equals author name, author name, new author, existing genre, and it's a new book. Author equals new author, and probably genre equals, And then we would do new book, what is it, full clean. We didn't really do any validation, but it's a good practice, and new book save. And in fact, we would have to do new author. Author save. There's a lot of stuff here, like, you know, we want to make sure this genre exists. There's other things, but essentially the data is a string, the author's name, a string, the book name, and then really we need to get the genre. And here we have to do a search to get the genre by name, you know, and this would be like select star from genre, where genre dot type really, yeah, equals, you know, genre name. But that's what the ORM does for us. And then we do this work to create a new author and save it. And then for our book, which I need to import. Again, the ORM does the work of connecting all these dots, right? Same data, author ID, genre ID, book name, but the ORM does the work of connecting all those dots together. When we do this, we're kind of going in through the back door. The ORM isn't doing a lot of the work, so we have to specify what data is what at a much lower level in the application. And that's why we kind of specify that in the JSON the way we do. And hopefully that helps.
It did. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a really good question. I think a good metaphor is this is kind of like you're going in, it's like the back door of the restaurant. Like you go in the front door of the restaurant, like there's a waiter, there's a table, there's everything. You go in the back door and it's kind of like under the hood. So we kind of have to set all of these things manually that otherwise we could writing our code and leveraging the ORM to do for us. Yeah, that's a really good question. It's 10 till, so it's probably a good point to start kind of checking in with folks. I did kind of write a simple view function to leverage that code that we just wrote to list all books belonging to an author. As you can see, it depends on a URL that gets the author's ID. And then we just make a query to get that author. And then we make another query to get all the books belonging to that author. And at that point, I think it's territory that folks are fairly comfortable with in terms of how to pass that data into a Django template and render it and stuff. So we could take a look at that. We could talk about this a bit more. We don't have time to build it out, but we could talk a little bit about the data model for checking books out from the library, which is another many-to-many relationship actually that we didn't get a chance to look at. What would folks find useful, or what questions do people have? Okay, I think what I'm going to do then is I think I'm going to just talk a little bit about what checking out a book looks like. So this is going to be at a higher level because of time, and also because it actually follows a very similar pattern to what we just did with books and authors. I think I'd actually been thinking about a book just having one author, but this actually has been really cool to see that many-to-many relationship. So let's talk about checking out books. A patron can check out and return a book. And a book is a paperback, a hardcover, an ebook. So this introduces a couple new things here. And I think I'm going to go over here,
Yeah, go over there.
Yeah. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do the best I can. So I think the first thing that we need to look at, and let's see, how good a copy paste is it? Let's try that one more time. Beautiful. Edit table. Oh, wow. Okay. ID, title. Let's just call it name. Get rid of you. Get rid of you. How do I change the name of the table? Can someone tell me how to change the name of the table?
You get out of there and you double click on it.
Oh, thank you. That is totally not what I wanted. Zach, could you just please change that table name to patron? Or could someone do that? I don't know why. Not that one. Please leave that one as book, the other one that I just created. Yeah, Alicia, if you want to do that, please.
Did you say href?
Patron. Thank you. Yeah, this actually gets a little complicated, but I think it'll be good. So book, let's call it copy book. So the first thing I want to introduce is the concept of we have information about a book and let me just make this, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can get rid of that. And then a book like has a physical copy. Like an example would be, this is maybe the information about James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl, but this is where we store how many copies we have, and if each copy is an ebook or a hardcover or a Kindle, and we should actually add another column. Let's call it patron checked out by patron ID. This isn't the best way to do it, but and we'll make that a foreign key. And we'll save that. And so this would be a many-to-many relationship. Like a book can have many copies. And this lets us track if each copy is a hardcover, a paperback, an audio book, a Kindle, and if someone's checked it out. Essentially, if this checked out by patron ID has a value, then someone has checked it out. If it's null, then we know it's available. So I apologize that we haven't had time to map this out, but I want to kind of check in if that makes sense to people. It's another many-to-many relationship between book and copybook. Rexford, yes, sir. Sorry, I don't know how that happened. No worries.
So I did want to know, why can't you just have like checked out by under book?
Right.
As well as like ebook copies, paper copies.
Right. So.
Oh, because then you'd have to have like.
Yeah, because then it checks out the
Never
whole
mind.
book item.
You could have 2 ebooks checked out by different people. So, okay.
Yeah, and this makes more sense. Like someone mentioned, what is it, ISBN number? What's some more like metadata about a book, you know, like year published. Like, let's imagine that, sorry, these should both be numbers. Oh, it doesn't matter. Let's imagine, because the user also, we want people to be able to search for books in the library's database and on the website and stuff. So this is like the source of information about a book. You know, when you're searching, is a book available? When was it published? Things like that. And then we have another table to store information about the physical copies of the books that we have. And truthfully, you might even have another table to store when a book is checked out. because you might want to have information like checked out date, you know, do they have a date field here? They do. And like, if I was a patron, I would love to be able to see a history of the books that I've checked out. And so we might even end up with another table here, but that's, I think, a bridge too far, or like a table too far for today. That which could have been a history book. But this is the main thing I wanted to share, because I think this is kind of cool and interesting and kind of like a level up of data modeling. So I really want to check in with folks and see if people have questions about that or thoughts about that kind of approach. And also if there's just anything else that people would like to go over before we take a break. Or really.
I saw that you were going over a review page. I think it's the tab to your left there. And I know you were actively coding it with us here in class, but do you have like the final review code for that or no?
I don't. I can put together some more fleshed out code for that though, if that would be useful for people. I might not get like all of these routes with all of the update stuff, but I can get the core data model done and maybe like one or two more views for creating or deleting that stuff.
So like, just, I want to make sure I understand, like looking at that last highlighted bullet you have there. So
Yes.
you have another table for like paperback version, like copy 1, paperback copy 2.
Right. So
How would you distinguish, I guess, just the ID?
Yeah, exactly. Essentially, every copy of a book has its own row in this table, with a copy being these days a more abstract concept because it's not just paperback or hardcover. It's also audiobook or ebook. Like, it's always been a little weird to me that like people, we can't just infinitely check out all the ebooks we want from libraries, but they actually have to get like licenses and stuff. So even with ebooks and audiobooks, there's still that concept of like a copy. Does that make sense, Alicia?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good question.
So what you're saying is each copy of each instance or each row of a copybook is going to be like assigned to a book class. It's going to have some sort of type, digital, audible, paper, and then it's going to have like who checked it out and what date they checked it out.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And I'll make it really explicit here because this could be better named. Yes. And so like one book can have many copies. Each copy belongs to one book. So I guess that's actually not, I don't think that's a many-to-many relationship. I need to think about that for a second.
Yeah, so it'd be a
Yeah, that's
drop
correct.
down. So it'd be a one to many.
Yeah, one to many.
Would be a
Yeah,
foreign
totally.
key for the book ID.
And then patron to copybook is many to many. Or no, I apologize. That's still one to many, just in the other direction. A copy can only be checked out by one patron, but a patron can check out many books. If someone wants to add that, that would be awesome. I'm not sure quite how to do that. As I said, like if we had there could even be potentially another join table of like checked out copy, which would allow us to have like richer historical information for a patron to be able to see their whole history of books. Because right now, like when I check out a book and return it, and then like Zach, when you check out a book, that history of me checking out the book is erased. We don't have anywhere to store that in our data model right now. But again, this is already like a fairly sophisticated data model, I think, that we're putting together. So yeah, hopefully this has been helpful. And I will add a bit more code. I know that our plan is to do our kind of retro. Were you thinking right after lunch, Raphael?
Yeah, so maybe like 1:30 would be good for the retro. And then we can do the assessment right afterwards.
Thank you. Yeah, and then there's the assessment for folks. So I'm happy to put some code together. I would imagine folks want to concentrate on the assessment. There should also be, I think, some, what hopefully is also useful is like both with the book, the bookstore project that Logan and Avery shared yesterday, and then with the video store that Zainab and I were doing earlier in the week. Like it's multiple examples of some core data relationships. But I'll get the models for this fleshed out, and some of maybe like, I don't think I'll do any templates, but I might write like the routes and view functions. So I think that probably would be helpful for people to see. And my guess is that correct? That's probably what people are most interested in seeing. Cool. Yeah. And the code will be uploaded. I think just to wrap things up, thank you folks so much. I want to emphasize, like, you don't have to draw out the models like this. Everyone does it different. Michael, yes, sir.
Sorry, you said when you're gonna keep building on this thing before you push it up, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna put a little more, I'm gonna flesh it out a bit before lunch is over.
Do you mind commenting like the logic flow, just that way it's like easy to follow?
I will do my best.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I am very mindful when I'm writing the code to make it as readable as possible and like keep each line of code as simple as possible. So hopefully that will do a lot of the work. And then thank you for the reminder. I will add in some comments as well. Yeah, any other thoughts, questions before we wrap up? I do have one last thing I want to say, but I want to check in with the class. Okay, yeah, so the last thing I wanted to say is we saw two different ways of workflow for developing stuff, for larger tasks like the assessment and so on. One is doing a lot of upfront planning, like we are with this data model here. It really depends on what you want. I like to do a bit of upfront planning with the data model. My diagrams are never this nice. It helps me kind of get context on things. The other mode that we saw with just listing the genres was a much more iterative kind of breaking work into like as small chunks as possible approach of getting a feature working end to end. And I think that's a very valuable approach for things like the assessment, because it's the best way to be productive. And you always want to, like, you want to know that your code is good, that it works and is doing what you want it to. And right now, the only way to do that is to run the program. So if you have code that isn't like running and producing some sort of output that you can use to verify that it's correct, that's like question mark danger zone code. Like, we don't know if that code is working or not. And so when you're working, kind of breaking work up into small chunks of code that you can test, and by running the program and making sure that it works, I think is a huge time saver and stress saver, because it makes the just debugging and the whole workflow process easier. It's a bit of a, it's definitely like a learned skill, and that's kind of part of why I wanted to illustrate it today as well. So I just wanted to emphasize a bit and share that with folks, and hopefully you will find it useful for the assessment and for the projects and stuff that we have coming up. Yeah, that's all I got. Zainab, Raphael, anything on your folks' mind before we break for lunch?
I got nothing.
Cool. When should we come back?
Let's have the
1:30?
retro at 1:30.
Cool. Okay. Awesome, folks. Have a good lunch.